Great, thanks, Claire. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for making time to join this briefing today. What I'd like to do is give you a little bit of background into Innovate UK and our role within UK research and innovation, and then run through the competition that opened on Monday this week and give you a few examples of the sorts of projects that we funded in the past. So I'm Michael Kipping. I'm one of the innovation leads in the health sector at Innovate UK. Part of my role is running the Biomedical Catalyst with one of my colleagues, Dr. Gordon Ford. And the other part of my role is really building on my kind of experience within medical devices and looking at opportunities within the UK healthcare sector to support businesses within UK life sciences, but specifically within health tech. UK research and innovation has been in existence for a couple of years, and when it was formed, it brought together the 7 research councils, Research England, and Innovate UK. The annual budget for UKRI is in the region of £7 billion, and recently a new CEO was appointed, Dame Ottiline Liza, who took over from Sir Mark Walpole. Innovate UK its role as part of UKRI is, in some respects, analogous to Research Council for Industry. It's not quite what we do, but that's sort of our role within UKRI. So what we're attempting to do is to drive productivity and economic growth by supporting businesses and really building on the UK's world-class research base. Our annual budget is in the region of £1.3 billion, and our interim exec chair is Dr. Ian Campbell. The global medtech market is vast and worth in the region of £330 billion. And the EU accounts for approximately a third of that global market. The UK health and life sciences is a core pillar of the UK economy, and medtech certainly a key part of that economic pillar. There are in the region of 3,950 companies in the UK, employing over 120,000 people. Most of those companies within health tech are SMEs and employ up to 100 employees. We only have 91 UK companies with revenues in excess of £50 million. The sector is also characterised by very heterogeneous types of companies as well, or focus of companies. Now, one thing that you will all have in common, I suspect, is the challenge posed by the new EU legislations, the new medical device regulation and the new IVD regulation. Maybe that's already touched your company and your projects, or it may do in the future. And this programme can help support a lot of the work that you'll need to undertake to demonstrate conformity if you're looking at CE marking. Now, this programme isn't focused on the UK's healthcare needs. It's focused on driving the UK economy. So we are not looking specifically to support projects that are aiming at meeting challenges within our healthcare system. If your project, your product, its best market is China or India or the US, and your project is focusing around market access into those geographies, then that's absolutely fine. The Biomedical Catalyst is Innovate UK's primary funding mechanism for health and life sciences. We do run other competitions that can provide support to you, such as SMART, and we do also run ad hoc competitions for health and life science SMEs. The Biomedical Catalyst has been a reliable funding mechanism since 2012 when it was formed. In that time, the programme's delivered £210 million of grant funding awards. And really the aims of the programme are to deliver growth to UK health and life science sectors, to enable you to get products and services more quickly to market, and to provide a more seamless, commercially led R&D environment. The programme was born out of the 2012 UK life science strategy that identified a market failure in terms of funding for companies at sort of early stages of development of their products. And they dramatically refer to this as the funding valley of death. And those challenges in terms of funding to do, especially to do riskier sorts of projects, is still prevalent today in 2020. Biomedical Catalyst, the name is perhaps not reflective of what the program actually does. So the program is technology agnostic. So we support any health and life science SME that have innovative ideas. We can do. So the sorts of projects that we have funded in the past range from cell and gene therapies to IVDs, software as a medical device, robotics, vaccine, literally anything and everything is potentially in scope, as long as it meets a specific health and care need. Looking at how the program is formed, there are 4 streams within the Biomedical Catalyst, and these broadly map to technology readiness levels. Now, don't get hung up on TRLs. This is mostly for illustrative purposes. We don't actively monitor TRLs. So right at one end of the spectrum, we have feasibility, and these projects tend to be 12 months or less, and total project costs up to £200,000. These are really, for example, like translational projects coming out of universities or ideas that don't have any sort of evidence behind them. Moving to the other end of the spectrum, late stage projects are there to support human clinical trials, regulatory approval, and really projects that are very close to market. Feasibility and primer being sort of proof of concept, they are shorter projects, and the values of the total project cost is below £2 million, and we have a 1-stage process for determining which projects we're able to fund. That 1-stage process involves you applying online to our innovation funding service, which I'll come on to in a little while. You'll be faced with 10 questions. Each of those questions carries 10 marks. And once you've submitted your application, we send all of the applications out to a pool of assessors that are independent of Innovate UK. Each application is assigned to 5 different assessors, and our pool of assessors is around about 400 strong at the moment. And the assessors that we allocate, we try and ensure that they have an understanding of the area in which you're working. Those assessors will then mark your application, mark those 10 questions. We average the scores of the assessors over those 10 questions. And then once all the marks are in, we firstly go through all the scores and make sure there are no anomalies in scoring. And then, assuming that everything's as it should be, we literally start from the highest scoring project and work down the list until we run out of money. That's in essence how we do it. Because the project lengths and the total project costs are much higher for early and late stage projects, we have a 2-stage process. So the first stage is the same, it's still that written assessment, but rather than making a funding decision on the assessor's scoring, we use that scoring to decide which projects we take forwards to a Dragon's Den style major awards committee. In this case, we'll probably take between 40 and 50 projects through to the panel stage. And that panel is made up of a range of people with different expertise and experience. So we have investors, academics, clinicians, industry experts, regulatory affairs professionals. But we always try and ensure that we have people on the panel that understand your project. So sometimes we bring in some guest panel members to ensure that we have the right mix of skills and expertise to really assess your project. If you do make it through to that panel session, it's a 30-minute meeting. So you have 10 minutes to pitch your idea and explain your concept to the panel, who have seen your project application already, by the way. So they do have time to dig into it before the meeting. After you've had your 10 minutes, the panel then have 20 minutes to ask you questions and to dig into any areas that they're unsure about. After that time, they discuss the project internally, and then they all score the project independently and privately. So no one on the panel knows how any other panel member has scored the project. Okay, they all do it independently. After the panel is met, they provide, we look at the scores that they provided and look at the funding recommendations that they provided to us. And we then take that and make a funding decision based on their input. And again, all of these people are independent of Innovate UK. Usually we do this panel face-to-face, but under the circumstances with COVID-19, we will be running these meetings and these panels virtually. The programme uses taxpayers' money, and it's absolutely crucial that we understand what the benefits, the impacts of that funding is, to be able to demonstrate to taxpayers that we're using their money wisely and effectively. Ipsos Mori have conducted 2 independent evaluations on this programme for us. The first one, an interim report, was published in 2016, and the final report was published in June last year. So here are I've just presented a few kind of snippets from the evaluation report. So firstly, in terms of value generation, they estimate that for every £1 invested by the government in this programme, that it generates £4.72 in public and business value. It helps lead to increased R&D investment, job creation. But one of the crucial elements, especially for you as companies, is that alongside the positive benefit of receiving grant funding, it also had an impact on the ability of companies to fundraise. And that was partly through investors viewing an Innovate UK grant as being a sort of third-party validation process for them and helping them de-risk their own decision-making. So there is a sort of dual benefit to receiving an Innovate UK grant. Looking at other mechanisms for supporting health and life science SMEs, R&D tax credits are really key support mechanism. And Ipsos Mori again found that as a minimum, the Biomedical Catalyst was as effective as R&D tax credits in stimulating private R&D investment. So basically, it's a good program. And I'll provide you with a link to the Biomedical Catalyst webpage later on that carries links to these different reports, should you wish to dig into it a bit further. Moving on to the current competition that opened on Monday. So this time we have £30 million of grant funding available, and we'll be supporting projects that have total costs between £250,000 and £4 million. If you're a sole applicant, SME, we can provide you with up to 70% of the total project costs. Now, what that means is that you will have to find some match funding from somewhere, which clearly can be a challenge. However, on the flip side, because it is state aid funding, it means that Innovate UK does not take any stake in your company or any interest in the product itself, commercial interest in the product, and there's no sort of clawback mechanisms with the grant either. Just to reiterate, the competition is technology agnostic. Digital health projects or data-driven ideas are supported absolutely within scope. In this case, we're supporting early and late stage projects only. So these are projects that range from 12 to 36 months. The Innovate UK website, so I've provided you with a link at the top of the page, but if you just go into a search engine, type in Innovate UK, it'll come up as the first hit anyway. But if you want to find out more about this competition, just go to search for funding opportunities, and you can just scroll down the page until you come to the Biomedical Catalyst, or just go into keywords and type it in there. This is the page that it'll take you to. So the Biomedical Catalyst 2020 competition. First thing to note is that there are a number of tabs on the screen that provide you with quite a lot of information about eligibility, scope, how to apply, that sort of thing. So please take time to have a look at those different tabs and information. You can start a new application here, so you have to create some login credentials. But key thing to note is that you don't need to finish it all in one go. You can go in, start an application, fill in a few sections, get a feel for the format, save it, come back to it, and iterate your application over time. However, once you are happy with it and you submit, you can't then get back into the application. So once it's submitted, it's gone. Key thing to note is that this deadline is non-negotiable. The competition is run through our automated innovation funding service, and at 11 o'clock it will shut down. And irrespective of whatever reasons and drivers behind late submissions, they will be ineligible. I'd strongly suggest considering perhaps the Monday that week as being the deadline and aiming for that instead, just to avoid any potential for missing the deadline. So what can you use the money for? And now I'm just providing you with some examples here. This isn't what you're limited to. It's just to give you a bit of a flavour. So you could pay for regulatory consultancy, for instance, to help build your regulatory plans. You might want to implement a quality management system. So for medical devices and IVDs, it would be ISO 13485 as the sort of de facto QMS. Might want to do some design and testing, or a clinical investigation. If you are looking at doing a clinical investigation and you haven't done so already, I'd strongly suggest having a chat to NIHR. They're able to potentially find you clinical partners to work with, and they also have a unit called NOCRI that can help you develop your clinical investigation. If you're doing a first in-person clinical trial, you will also need to speak to MHRA to get pre-CE approval from them as well. We are limited as to what we can do with IP, but we can fund up to £7,500 worth of work related to IP. And conformity assessment. As I mentioned earlier, you're not tied to doing projects that meet a UK health need. Okay, so if you need to cover some of the costs or all of the costs related to FDA approval submission, or Japanese approval, Chinese or European, that's all within scope as well. Can you collaborate? Absolutely, yes. However, the lead applicant must be a UK registered SME. There's no time limit in terms of how long the SME has to have been set up for. So you can literally go onto Companies House and register like the same day as you apply. That's absolutely fine, but you must be registered. The work must be carried out in the UK unless you've got a really strong case as to why that isn't possible. Cost alone is not a strong enough case. It would need to be that there is a data resource in another country or technical skills in another country that isn't the UK. So you need to have a really clear and strong rationale. Doing work overseas isn't out of scope, but you just need to really make your case. You can collaborate with all sorts of organisations. I've just provided a few examples here. So you can collaborate with academia, the NHS, other companies, research organisations, and up to 50% of the total project costs can be attributed to a collaborative partner or partners. Interestingly, for universities, RTOs, like a Catapult, for instance, and public bodies, they can claim up to 100% of their costs. So just to give you some examples of what this means in practice, say you were going to do a clinical investigation and do some design work, and the total project costs were £1 million. You might want to just do it yourself. So not collaborating, you might do some subcontract in there, but you're not actually sort of doing a formal collaboration. In that case, you can claim up to £700,000. You might choose to do a 50-50 collaboration. So SME claims 70% of the 500k, and NHS can claim 100%. So total grant would be 850k in this case. You could do a 70-30, a 50-40-10. I'm sure you get the idea now. But the key thing to remember is that the lead SME element has to represent 50% or more of the total project costs. So what can't you use the money for? So the funding, as I mentioned earlier, is state aid and governed by state aid regulation. So there are some limitations. The first one is that we only fund pre-market projects and products. So if you already have CE mark or FDA approval, you're likely to be out of scope. And what that means is that we don't fund development and iteration of existing products. It must be innovative. So no sort of Me Too projects or products. It must meet a specific health and care need. There are, and we might have companies on this call now, there are companies that have developed platform technologies that are potentially applicable to a broad range of diseases. If that is the case, all you need to do is just tailor it to a specific use case. So as an example, we funded a project in the past that was a respiratory diagnostic platform and could have been used for a broad range of respiratory illnesses. But what they did was tailor it to asthma. So then it's meeting a specific healthcare need. So that's fine. So if they came to us and said, we can do all respiratory diagnostics, that wouldn't be okay. But tailoring it to asthma or COPD or whatever is absolutely fine. So just think about how you frame the project. Whether you've applied for funding or not before, certainly if this is going to be your first go at applying for grant funding, I'd strongly suggest getting some support with forming your application and reviewing it. And there are a number of organisations that can do it. So SEHTA can, Medilink more broadly can, Digital Health London, but also within the Innovate UK family, we have the Knowledge Transfer Network and EEN and Catapult Network. So all of these organisations are completely separate to Innovate UK and sit outside government. So Innovate UK sits sort of inside government and they sit outside and receive part of their funding from us. So the Knowledge Transfer Network and EEN can provide you with guidance and support, not just in terms of your application, but a broad range of support mechanisms. The Catapult Network can actually collaborate with you on a project. So they provide kind of specific skills and expertise to sort of facilitate innovative projects and development of projects. So they can both help you with your application, but also collaborate. Using grant writers isn't, it's perfectly acceptable, perfectly feasible. Think carefully about them. They can be quite expensive, but some companies do use them. Ultimately, though, our assessors can only go off the words that you put in front of them. So making sure that your application is as polished and as clear and concise as possible is absolutely key. Don't have many words per question. So I think you're limited to about 500 words per question. And there are some questions where you can upload additional attachments. So for instance, for your project plan, you can upload a Gantt chart. And for risk, obviously you can upload a risk register. But you do need to be really clear and concise. As mentioned earlier, we have a specific Biomedical Catalyst webpage. So this is separate from the competition webpage. And on here, it just gives a bit more information about the program and links to those documents that I mentioned earlier. If, having sort of reviewed the information that's out there, you have specific questions, which you may well do, please feel free to contact us. If you can, go through our customer support service, because they log all of the inquiries that we get and automatically funnel them to the innovation leads, and they track our responses. So if for instance something, perhaps miss an email, it happens, what they will do is basically chase us after a short period of time and make sure that you get a response. So please make sure that as a bare minimum you CC them into any email correspondence. I'd like to now just give you a few case studies to give you a sense of the sorts of projects that we've funded in the past. The first one is Keron Medical, and their mission is to help radiologists detect breast cancer earlier using deep learning, and they're based down in London. The project title was Mammography Breast Cancer Screening Software for Radiologists. So the challenge itself is that breast cancer is the UK's most common cancer, and the NHS screens over 2.2 million women every year and detects in the order of 18,000 breast cancers. Early detection of any cancer is critical for survival, but mammogram assessment is challenging at the moment due to staff shortages and difficulty in assessing the mammograms themselves. Of the 2.2 million women screened annually, 89,000 are recalled, and 45% of those undergo further investigations. The concept behind this project is to conduct early stage R&D, looking at health economics, developing the platform, interface, prototype, and doing some testing in an NHS setting. And the aim of this company is to really help radiologists and breast units deliver better breast screening service. So sort of reduced unnecessary recalls, enhanced accuracy of detection, and ultimately helping the NHS save costs and other healthcare systems. Their total project costs were £765,000, and they received just over £580,000 from us. In this case, they had two project partners, so Leeds Teaching Hospitals NHS Trust and the University of Leeds. Next example I want to give you is Corporation Pop. And their mission is, or their profile is, deeply engaging interactive experiences that connect you with your customers. And they're based in Manchester. Their project title was Patient's Virtual Guide, a healthcare app using augmented reality, gamification, and AI to improve a child's knowledge of health interventions. The challenge is that children who are poorly prepared and informed about health interventions experience increased stress and anxiety that lead to poorer health outcomes. And poor health literacy has been shown to lead to poor engagement with health services. Currently, children are educated about health interventions using a range of media, so leaflets, DVDs, so on and so forth. And often these education materials are aimed at adults rather than children, so aren't necessarily that user-friendly for the children. Current technologies targeted at children are hospital specific, so it is a sort of a postcode lottery in terms of the provisions that different healthcare organisations have for providing information to children. The concept behind this project was to meet that market need by developing Patient's Virtual Guide, so a healthcare app, to use 3D augmented reality to improve a child's understanding and knowledge of health interventions. The aim is to increase health literacy, leading to a better engagement with healthcare professionals and organisations. The project itself was looking at new features, creating IP, and then evaluating the platform in a clinical setting with 90 patients. After the project, they're looking to commercialise within 12 months. So the total project costs here was £604,000, and they received an Innovate UK grant of £467,000. In this case, they had one project partner, which was Edge Hill University. The final example I'd like to give you is Skin Analytics. So this company, it's aimed at it's developed a custom AI algorithm to create innovative skin cancer pathways, and they're based down in London. The project title was a late-stage development of a skin cancer detection service. The challenge itself is that, well, where they were up to when they applied to us was that they developed an AI solution for detection of skin cancer from images taken by a smartphone with a dermoscopic lens attachment. Their vision is to reduce the number of deaths from the disease while significantly reducing the cost of finding, diagnosing skin cancer. Prior to funding, the company demonstrated that their skin cancer detection service, that they call DERM, can identify cases of malignant melanoma, basal cell carcinoma, and squamous cell carcinoma with a high degree of accuracy from historical images of skin lesions. They'd also conducted a clinical evaluation study with 7 NHS trusts. This project, what they were looking to do is sort of build on that previous work and evaluate the efficacy of the system for identifying non-melanoma skin cancers. They wanted to conduct research into whether they could detect changes in the lesions over time, which is important for healthcare professionals who want to sort of watch and wait suspicious lesions. What they wanted to do was assess how to developing the platform and the technology is important, but another key area is, well, how do you integrate it into the NHS and healthcare pathways? So they wanted to look at technical integration with, say, GP electronic patient record systems, understand patient pathways, barriers to adoption, and gaining some user feedback. An initial health economic analysis of the cost benefits of the service to the NHS was also carried out. Total project costs here were just over £1 million, and they received 750k from Innovate UK, and they had no project partners. So that concludes my slides. So what I'd like to do is sort of invite you to sort of pose any questions now. But if you can do so in the chat box, then Claire and I can keep track of the questions, make sure you get some answers, and also we can then build them into a full FAQ that we can share with all of you.
Michael, do you want to turn your camera on, because your camera's just off at the moment?
I hope you're all ready for this. I've got a rather dazzling shirt on today. Ta-da! So if that hasn't put you off, feel free to pose any questions. Okay, so can you give advice if a project straddles primary and early stage? Yeah, sure. So if the project will end up somewhere in early stage, then that's fine. Clearly, the more evidence that you have to support your application, the better. But that's sort of fine. If you're starting at a sort of a proof of concept stage or slightly earlier, again, the TRL levels are just there for indicative purposes. Okay.
Please do use this time wisely. It's the last session we've got with Michael, so this is your golden opportunity to ask your questions. So please use the chat room.
Okay, can you provide advice on projects moving from previous feasibility to early stage? What sort of advice are you after? Looking for examples or how they did it? Or can you just expand on that a little bit, please? So one thing to point out is that firstly, the program, as I mentioned earlier, spans from feasibility right through to late stage. So it's perfectly legitimate for companies to work through all of those streams. That's absolutely fine. And we do have examples, quite a few examples of projects moving from, say, primer to early stage or early stage to late stage. That's fairly common. That's absolutely fine and acceptable. The other thing I'd like to note is that it's also acceptable to hold more than one grant with Innovate UK. So you might have two with us or one with us and one with, say, NIHR. As long as there's no overlap between those projects and what you're trying to do, so we're not sort of double paying you, that's okay. Also, we would look at your ability to resource multiple projects at the same time as well. So I hope that answers your question, Ewan. Can we run the application by Innovate UK advisors prior to submission? Yeah, you can. Okay, by Innovate UK advisors, I would direct you to the Knowledge Transfer Network. They're able to provide that sort of detailed review of your application. What we can do at Innovate UK is we can tell you whether your project is in scope or not. But because we're running the competition, we can't sort of pose the questions and then answer them for you. So we are limited as to the feedback we can give you your application.
Anybody else? I know it's Friday, end of the day. There's two there.
Okay. Does a shift or addition to main project focus affect any grant award? So I'll answer that based on my understanding of the question. If I'm answering it in the wrong way, please come back to me. So if this relates to you getting an award and then the project needing to change afterwards, that's really common. So most of the projects we have sort of undergo some sort of challenge during their period, whether it's financial, technical, COVID-19, whatever it might be. So there is the ability to ask for project change requests, and that's pretty common. That can include extensions and minor modifications to scope. If it's a significant change, we probably would need to review it, but that's all sort of business as usual. How quickly are rewards given and when? So in this case, the competition closes in October. We would then have a period where we need to assess the projects. Now, we are expecting quite a lot of applications this time. So we have a period for assessment. We then need to have the major awards committee. So realistically, we'll have made the decision by the end of this year and looking for projects to start up early next year, say in Q1 next year. Once you've got an award, there is a 3-month project startup window that you need to work within. So during that period, you need to work with our finance team to provide evidence that you have the match funding, for instance. So you don't need to have that much funding when you apply, but you do need to have it once you get into that startup phase. If a project is based on an existing minimal viable telehealth product, which connects patients to doctors, but wants to integrate patient records or wearable device data, eligible. Okay, so really, I would say think about how you can frame it, and so what's innovative about it? So what's new about it? Is anyone else doing it at the moment? Is this completely new? And how will it have a direct impact on patient care and the health? So possibly it could be, but I think it'd probably be helpful if you can send me some bullet points, we can then do a quick scope check for you on that. So another one, just to clarify, the application does not need to meet the requirements of all prior specified stages of development. Yeah, no, it's you don't need to have been through any of the other stages. Each of the streams of the Biomedical Catalyst is a standalone competition. So you don't need to have got primer to get early stage. You don't need to have had early stage to get late stage. Is clinical evaluation restricted to the NHS, private healthcare, or European clinical partners available? You can, again, this sort of goes back to the point about justifying doing work overseas. So clinical evaluations, for instance, are one area where you might need to do work overseas for regulatory approval. So if your project is targeted at the US or China, they will want you to do clinical evaluation in their own geography. So potentially that's fine, as long as it isn't possible to do it in the UK. European equals Ireland. Okay, well, hopefully my last answers address that.
Excellent tranche of questions there, everyone. Well done.
Properly put me on the spot. Great.
If anybody has any further questions, please do use this time wisely. We've got good 15 minutes before the end of the session.
Clearly, after this, if you go away and any other sort of questions spring to mind, you will have a copy of the presentation and access to the webinar. But also, feel free to contact us if you have specific queries that you can't get answered online. Action after EU departure. Sort of the UK leaving the EU has no bearing on this competition.
Okay, if nobody has any further questions, then I will leave it there and say thank you very much, Michael, for an excellent week of presentations. Oh, there is one question from Dick.
If project fails, if all of our projects are successful, then Innovate UK isn't taking enough risk. We expect, we are deliberately funding risky, innovative projects. And sometimes they fail, and there's a multitude of reasons why they might fail. So there's no clawback requirement. If it fails for technical, scientific reasons, whatever, that's innovation, isn't it? That's part of the course.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, everybody, we'll leave the session there now, and obviously we'll get the slides off to you by Monday with the FAQ of all the questions asked over the whole week. And thank you very much for joining us, and have a lovely weekend. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, everyone.